Hey guys, it's Loaf. I apologize for the long absence of content. In that time, I'd gotten married, I have a stepson now, and I had started a new job, which ended up taking a good majority of my free time. With the upcoming release of Last Epoch, I'm excited to start streaming and making YouTube content again. This will be a build guide for the Mad Lightning Runemaster. This will most likely be the build I start on release tomorrow. I was planning on making a full in-depth leveling guide as well, but Dread ended up making a build guide just a couple days ago for how to level Runemaster, and it's very close to what the build is at the end game, and it's also close to how I would level a Runemaster, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave a link to his video in the video description below if you guys need any help with the leveling process and getting into monoliths. I will also have a very in-depth loot filter linked below. This will have various level requirements throughout the filter. That way it will naturally drop off some of the lower level bases and allow you to get more adaptive spell damage on your weapons and kind of naturally progress through the campaign. And then once you get into monoliths and empowered monoliths, it will turn itself into an endgame filter. That way you guys aren't having to try to find a new filter after a certain point. You can just stick with the same one and make some small tweaks to progress through the game. Alright, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the build. I'm going to start out with going through the skills just so you can get a base idea for how everything scales, and then we'll break down the passive points and the gear and how those interact with that. Anything that's changing into 1.0 that's been nerfed or altered in any way, I'll go over to it as we get to that point. So starting off, we're going to go with our Lightning Blast tree. This is going to be the main tool for our damage going into the build. With leveling it, I would start with the 4 points into Arcing Power. This is going to allow you to have extra chains on Lightning Blast if you've cast it recently. Then we're going to go into Closed Circuit. This is going to allow you to chain to yourself. So that way when there's only one target, you can bounce forth between yourself and the single target to still get the effect of all those chains. Then we'll put 1 point into Surging Influence. This will increase the range of our chains, allowing us to have better map clear. Then we'll grab 1 point to Storm Razor. This will increase the base crit chance of Lightning Blast, but more importantly, it gives us access to Lightning Attunement. This will give us a 5% chance to gain Lightning Aegis on hit. Lightning Aegis is going to give us 50% increase of lightning damage, as well as 25% less damage taken. The 5% is all we need. We're going to be attacking really, really fast with this build. This is going to be up 100% of the time. After that, we'll put the 4 points into Overcharge. This will give us a 24% chance to double cast our skills. With all of those chains going off, this is going to be constantly proccing. And then more into that, we'll be grabbing Hypercharge for a chance to quadruple cast our chains here. We'll grab 2 points into Front Loaded. It's going to give us 40% increased damage. The Lightning Blast itself isn't actually going to be what's doing our damage. These are more just going to be travel points. And then the damage comes in from Spark Charge. So we're going to grab the 3 points into Cloud Answer. That's going to give us a 30% chance on hit to apply a Spark Charge. Spark Charge is a spell that's going to apply a negative ailment onto the enemy, and then after I believe it's like 0.7 seconds, it's going to explode and do AoE spell damage to all nearby targets. The 30% is going to be more than enough with all of the double and quad casts we're getting on top of all the different chains to apply that. Next, we'll be taking the 5 points into Mortal Capacitor. That's going to give us a 200% multiplicative damage modifier for the Spark Charges. And then the last two nodes, these are the nodes that you'll drop if you aren't able to get a exalted increase to levels of Lightning Blast on your helmet. So the first one is Final Spark. What this does is if the target already has a Spark Charge on it and you are going to apply another Spark Charge, it's going to detonate that existing Spark Charge. It just gets rid of some of the delay of the damage, but it's not necessary for the build at all. It just helps it smooth it out a little bit more. And then for the last point, you can put it into Crackling Speed just for a little bit of extra cast speed. We're going to be stacking a lot of cast speed on this build, so that way we can apply as many Spark Charges as possible. For our next skill, we're going to have Flame Ward. This is going to be our main defensive ability. So what it does is it gives you a burst of ward, and then for 3 seconds it also gives you 30% less hit damage. The first nodes you're going to take are the 3 points into Dilation. It's going to increase the duration of Flame Ward for us. And then you're going to want to go over here to the left. This is just a travel point into Fire Aura, and then into Frost Ward. What Frost Ward's going to do is it's going to convert the base damage of Flame Ward into a cold skill. That's going to come into play when we get into the Runic Invocation skill, but we need to get that changed over to a cold skill as soon as possible. Next up, we'll grab the 2 points into Energize. These are just travel points mainly. The extra ward is nice. Then we will grab 3 points into Prismatic Buffer for the 30% less elemental damage taken while its Flame Ward is up. Then we'll grab the 5 points into Barrier for the additional 40% less hit damage. Then go over and grab the 2 points into Recollection for 50% ward retention. One of the big changes with going into 1.0 with Runemaster and ward characters in general is they made ward retention a lot harder to get. So we moved some points around to make sure we could grab these extra 2 points to get ward retention where we can. And then you'll finish up the points here with putting everything else into Frostguard. This is going to give us increased armor while our Flame Ward is up. It's actually going to be quite a bit there. I think with my actual character, I get up to like 30 or 40% reduced damage taken with my armor, and a lot of that's going to end up coming from Flame Ward. For our next skill, we're going to have our Frost Wall. This basically just creates a wall of ice in front of you that you can walk through. The base effect doesn't really matter because we're going to be changing that. For the first 2 points, we're going to be putting it over to Marching Winter. These are mainly just travel points, going to give you a little bit bigger of a wall and a little bit extra duration. Then we'll be grabbing the 1 point into a Pyroglass. What this is going to do is it's going to convert Frostwall over to a Firewall and making it a fire skill. It's also going to change over the Chill effect and Frostbite effect to Ignite and Fire Shred. This is going to be important again for the Runic Invocation later to make sure that this is a fire skill. The next point, we're going to put it over into Brand the Invaders. This is going to be anytime an enemy walks through your wall, it's going to put a brand of trespass on them, which is going to make them take more damage per ignite that they have on them. The main purpose of this, we're going to get into our gear, but it's going to apply another negative ailment onto the target. After that, we're going to go ahead and go up here, grab 1 travel point into Biting Limit. We'll then grab the 4 points of the Lightning Rod. What this will do is one of the pillars on our Frost Wall is going to start casting the Lightning Blast for you. This is going to apply the Lightning Blast from your skill tree and use 100% of its mana cost. So what that will do is it will start putting over the spark charges from Cloud Answer on Lightning Blast. We will then take the 1 point over here to charge Pylons. This is going to make the outer pillars of Lightning Blast target enemies every couple seconds there. And then with the 2 extra points into Amplified Currents, this is going to increase the frequency on how often those Lightning Blasts are going to come out. Frostwall is super, super busted. You can pretty much clear monoliths with this Justice ability without even casting your Lightning Blast. If you just slap it on top of them, this is going to clear out most of the packs for you. After that, we're going to go ahead and grab 2 points into Crystals of Protection. These are mainly just travel points. We'll then grab the 2 points into Boosted Kickoff. What this does is if we place our Frostwall down and we walk through it, it's going to give us Frenzy and Haste for 4 seconds. That will help us just run through things a lot quicker, as well as that Frenzy is going to give us 20% increased cast speed, which is going to be really big for applying those spark charges. Next, we'll grab the 1 point into Purifying Gate. A lot of people try to grab Purify on your belt in order to cleanse off any negative ailments like poison or bleed stacks. This is going to free up that slot for us and just allow us to be able to clear any negative ailments on us whenever we want. Next, we're going to go ahead and grab the 2 points into Chilled Touch. This is going to give us a more multiplier for damage to chilled enemies. All the enemies we attack are going to end up being chilled, so that's an extra 14% damage. Then we'll grab the 1 point into Protection of Apostate. That will give us some ward when enemies pass through it. That's mainly just a travel point so we can get access to Wall of Glyptic Art. What this will do is it's going to allow one of the other pillars on Frostwall to start casting Runebolt for us. And then we'll get into that there when we get to the next skill. All right, for our next skill, we're going to go over Runebolt. We're never going to be self-casting this. I don't even have Runebolt on my skill bar when I'm playing. This is only going to be the cast that's coming from Frostwall. Now, the first points that we're going to take here is we're going to grab the 2 points into Arcane Restoration. This doesn't actually proc since we're not directly casting Runebolt. These are just going to be travel points. We'll then grab the 3 points into Orderly Conduct. This is going to allow us to apply Ignite and Frostbite with the Runebolt. That's going to become really important when we start going over the gear and I show you which weapon we're using, but basically just applying more negative ailments to the target. We'll then grab the 3 points into Runeweaver. What this does is when Runebolt is being cast, it's going to give us Runeweave stacks. And what that will do is it's going to give us mana regen and let a little bit of mana spent gain us ward. We don't really spend that much mana on this build, so that second part doesn't really matter all that much. But the mana regen helps us sustain the Frost Wall, which is the only thing that really costs mana in this build. The next point, we're going to go over Dissolve and Conquer. This is going to give us a new benefit for Runeweave stacks. So we're going to get 0.5% elemental damage per stack of Armor Shred. We're going to have a lot of different items that are going to be giving us Armor Shred on this build. This actually gives us quite a bit of extra damage. Next, we're going to grab the 5 points into Punch Through Metal. This is going to give our Rune Bolts 100% Armor Shred chance. They're going to be casting out quite a few Rune Bolts every second with the Frost Wall, so that's actually going to make quite a big difference. Next, we'll grab the 5 points into Arcane Overcharge. That'll give us a 100% chance to have an extra 2 projectiles from the Rune Bolt, so it's going to be shooting out 3 projectiles each cast. Then we'll be grabbing the 1 point to Runic Invocation. That's going to make it auto-target the Rune Bolts and shoot them into a cone. It's not quite as good as like the homing node on Fireball, but it will allow it to shoot in the general direction of where the enemies are at, rather than just in a set projectile stance from the Frost Wall. And then for the last 2 points, we're just going to throw them into Arcanist. The cast speed doesn't matter, but it does have a chance to proc you Haste, which procs quite a bit just because it's attacking quite often. For the final skill, we're going to be picking up Runic Invocation. This is a skill I feel like that scares most of the newer players from ever touching Runemaster. Basically, whenever you cast a spell, depending on the element of that spell, it gives you a rune above your head. So it can either be lightning, cold, or fire. And then based on the runes that you have above your head, when you activate this skill, it's going to cast a runic ability based on the combination. Now that can be really daunting for a lot of newer players. The way I have this set up is very new player friendly. You're not going to have to worry about pressing the right combination of spells. All of that is going to be automated for you. So for the first points here, we're just going to throw in 1 point travel point into Attuned Approach, a travel point into Inscribed Patterns, and then our goal is to get over here as fast as possible. So we're going to grab the Author of Arcana. That's going to refund 100% of the mana cost of Runic Invocation. We don't have a lot of mana regen, so that's going to help negate this from having any impact on us. It is going to give it a 12-second cooldown, but that's not a huge deal. Then the next point we're going to get is Immutable Order. What this does is it bypasses the need for setting up a certain combo with your runes. Basically, it's going off of the combination of spells based on your action bar and the order that the skills are in. So for instance, this is how I have my skill bar set up. So I have Flame Ward here. We have that converted to a cold skill. So that's going to always give us a cold rune first. Then we have Frost Wall that's set up as a fire skill. So that will give us a fire rune second. And then I have Snap Freeze on here. You can put any cold skill you want on there. Snap Freeze is just good because it'll help you abuse certain boss mechanics and help skip certain phases. But that will be a cold skill. So we have a cold, fire, cold. So that means no matter what skill we're casting, it's always going to give us the runes in that order. And then what that's going to do is when we activate our Runic Invocation, when we have our 3 runes above our head, that is going to cast... let's see here. It's going to cast our Railwind's Frostguard, and what this does is it's going to grant you a shield, which makes you take 30% less damage. It's going to give you an initial 120 ward, and then 6 extra ward per intelligence. Our build stacks intelligence, so it's going to give us actually a lot of ward. And then you're going to get ward regen at 20 plus 1 per intelligence. So this is a huge defensive layer. This patch going into 1.0, Runemaster got a huge nerf into its defenses, and this is part of how I'm negating that nerf. This is going to be a massive defensive layer for us, so we're going to cast this basically every time it's off cooldown. After we've grabbed those points, we're going to go ahead and grab the 4 points into Scriber of Power. This is going to give us a buff for a few seconds after we've cast. That's going to give us a bunch of flat damage as well as cast speed. Then we'll be taking the 1 point into Enigma. This is going to change our Runic Invocation into a teleport ability. It's going to add an extra 5 seconds to the cooldown, but we're going to have a whole bunch of cooldown reduction to help make up for this node and the Author of Arcana, so it's not going to be a huge deal. So basically, you don't really have to worry about setting this up properly. You're going to end up casting 3 abilities before this is off cooldown pretty much every time. So you're just going to use it on cooldown as a movement skill, and it's going to take care of the rest for you. After that, we're going to grab the 4 points into Adept Rune Scribing for the extra cooldown recovery speed. We'll then grab the 4 points into Word of Herod for the 80% chill chance with the heal rune. We're going to have 2 cold runes, so we'll always have that up. You can then put in the additional point to Inscribe Patterns for the extra mana regen and the freeze rate multiplier. You can then put the extra point into Attuned Approach, so that way we can get access over to Runeslinger, where you're going to put the remaining 3 nodes. The cast speed is nice, and then it'll also give you a current mana gained as ward. And then that's going to finish out all of our skills. So next we're going to go over all of the gear for the character. That way when we go through the passive tree, it's going to make a lot more sense. You're going to see a couple legendary pieces on here. You don't need any legendary gear. I leveled as this character and played this character all the way through the entire game. All of this is self-farmable. It just helps bump up your damage by quite a bit once you get access to the uniques. And then I just made them legendary on here so you know what the best stats are to go for if you do end up getting legendary potential on there. So the bread and butter of this entire build is going to be the Mad Alchemist Ladle. What this does is it allows you to get more spell damage per negative ailment on the target. It doesn't matter how many stacks of that ailment you get, just how many unique modifiers that you're going to be getting on the target. This is one of the things that did end up getting nerfed a little bit and going into 1.0. It used to give 8% more spell damage per negative ailment, now it's 6%. So it ends up being like a 25% nerf on the damage that this applies. It shouldn't be really that impactful. We're still getting well over 100% more damage multiplier on here, so that shouldn't be a big deal. The other part it gives is going to give you increased cast speed per 2 intellect. Like I was saying, this is an in-stacking build. Over here it shows at like 130 intellect. It should be very easy to hit like 80, 90 intellect with this build and get crazy attack speed. The 2 modifiers that you're looking to get on here, you really want to try to get blind chance on hit. That's going to add another negative ailment. And then if you have another slot, you can either get increased spell damage or crit multi. Those would probably be the 2 best stats to get. Next we have the helmet here. We're doing an Arcane Visage. Main thing is try to get as high a level as you can on the level of Lightning Blast. Even if you can only get a +1 or a +2, it should be plenty to get you through to the end game. And then whenever you get the chance, try to get the +3 or +4 Exalted mod. Other than that, you're going for Intellect and increased life, and then we're going to get reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Next for the body armor, this is a new base. It hasn't been updated on the filter yet, as it doesn't exist in the filter. I'll have this link updated for the item filter there day 1. So as soon as I can log in, I'll update that link for you guys. If you happen to start playing there before I get it updated, just make sure you go in and change the loot filter for the endgame chest armor to show the Tyrant Regalia. So that's going to give us some cast speed, some flat damage, lightning, crit multi, intellect, and then again, just double health. We're just going to try to get as high of a health pool as we can. Next, we have our offhand fragment of the Enigma. This is going to skyrocket the build. This easily quadruples your damage. So what it's going to do is it's going to give us extra chance to apply Spark Charge, which is really good. And then the real money line here is the +2 flat lightning damage for Spark Charge per intellect. Again, we're stacking intellect. This is going to give us a shit ton of flat damage. And then also we're going to get the increased Spark Charge explosion area. This is going to create a shotgun effect. So if you have a pack of 5 mobs and you chain a lightning blast to all of them, it's going to apply a Spark Charge on all of them. They're all going to detonate and explode on top of each other and just shotgun down the mob packs. It's also going to give you +1 to the lightning skills, which is really good. We don't get a benefit from the melee more multiplier or the cast on teleport, but that doesn't really matter. And then if you do end up getting one with LP, I would just try to get a spell crit on here so you can try to cap out the crit on your spark charges. For the amulet, we're going to run a bone amulet to try to get more physical and necrotic resistance. Main stats we're looking for here are crit multi and spell crit. And then if you can on the suffixes, try to get frailty and shred armor on there just for some extra defenses and some more multipliers with the armor shred. Okay, so for the rings, we're going to get a Siphon of Anguish. This unique ring drops off of the Shade of Orbis from the monoliths. The main reason why we're running this is it's going to give us that 30% chance to apply Doom on hit, which is a void damage over time ailment. Obviously, we're not scaling that damage. This is only because it adds another negative ailment onto the target, which is going to give us more damage from that Alchemist Ladle. And then if you can get one with LP, they're pretty common. I would just try to get like Intellect or Spell damage on there. For the belt, we're going to be running a Strand of Souls. I went back and forth on various different belts while I was leveling this character, but after seeing the patch notes and the huge nerf to ward retention, this is one of the places where we can get an extra 70% ward retention, which is going to be really massive. If you do get one with LP, try to get cooldown recovery. This is going to give us a higher uptime on our Flame Ward. Next, we're going to do an Opal Ring for our ring here for the extra cooldown recovery, as well as it can give us 2 extra Intellect from the Implicit. The main stats are going to be Intellect and Spell damage, and then whatever res you're missing. Next, we're going to get the Twisted Heart. This drops off of the Emperor of Corpses from the Reign of Dragons timeline. So this is another part that got nerfed pretty heavily. I believe before this, it went up to 14% of your current health converted to ward whenever you cast an elemental spell. Now it goes up to 8%. We should be able to help get around some of that with one of our glove mods. It's still going to be the absolute go-to item for this build. It's going to give us a huge amount of health with the Implicit. We're still going to get a lot of ward coming in from using this because we're casting so fast with all those chances to double cast and quad cast. And then on top of that, it gives us cast speed on the item as well. For the boots, we're going to use the Healborian boots just to help fill out the cold res. We're looking for Intellect, move speed, hybrid life, and cooldown recovery. If you do happen to find an experimental pair of boots with the Frenzy after you use a traversal skill and the increased Frenzy effect, that's going to give us a lot more cast speed. It's really easy to seal those offs with the runes that guarantee that you can seal an experimental mod. So I know this looks like a really big pair of boots, but it's actually really easy to craft. Next, we're going to have a Crusader Gauntlets for the extra void res. We're going to look for cast speed and Intellect on here with the reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes and hybrid health. Same thing as the boots. If you can find an experimental mod where you lose a percentage of your current health per second and you gain that as ward, super easy to seal off and craft those. Next, we're going to go over the idols. So to help counteract the nerf to ward retention, I did move my idols around a little bit. So I'm going to end up using 2 adorned idols that have ward retention and cold and fire res on there. And then I'm going to do 2 large arcane idols with increased cast speed while you have lightning aegis. You always have lightning aegis, so that's an extra 40% cast speed between the 2 of these that you're getting. And then I would either look for elemental res or one of the other resistances that you're looking for the other modifier. Our humble idols here are really important. So you want to make sure that you get it with chance to bleed on hit. That's going to add another negative ailment for the Mad Alchemist Ladle. And then whatever resistance you're missing, I put Void Res on there. For the last 2 little slots, I'm just going to put the Ligonian Idols on there with ward retention and then whatever res you're missing. And then finally, for the blessings, the first blessing is our most important. Try to get the spell damage leeches health. We're sacrificing a lot of our health using Twisted Heart and the experimental modifier from the Crusader Gloves. This is going to help you grab a lot of that health back. You're going to get more ward the higher health pool you have, so you don't want it to be draining your health to really low. You want to be like 80% plus health all the time. And then next, we're going to go for the chance to shred lightning res. Obviously, we're doing lightning damage. This is going to give us a lot more damage, taking away all that resistance from the monsters. Also, chance to shred any resistance is counted as a negative ailment, which is going to apply to the Mad Alchemist Ladle. So the rest of our blessings are all going to be shred blessings. So we're going to go for the shred poison res on the Reign of Dragons timeline, the shred physical res on the Age of Winter, and the shred necrotic res on the Spirits of Fire. All of those are resistance shreds that we typically can't get on a mage, so it's going to be really important to help get those more damage multipliers. Alrighty, now that we know how the skills work and how the gear is going to scale those skills, let's go ahead and get into the passive tree. For the first 8 points, we're going to put them into Arcanus for the intellect and the resistance. We'll put 1 point into Scholar and 1 point to Reactive Ward, so we can get to the next row of skills. We're going to put 5 points into Mage Flurry for the extra cast speed, and then 5 points into Warden for the extra ward retention. We'll then go over to the Runemaster tree. Our main goal is to get access to Frostwall, and then we're going to fill out the points in Sorcerer before we continue putting points into Runemaster. So I'd recommend grabbing the 5 points in Unsealed Mana first. That's going to give us increased cast speed, as well as the 5-point bonus. Whenever we cast 3 skills in a row that cost 0 mana, it's going to give us a burst of mana and ward. How we have it set up, our Lightning Blast is going to cost 0 mana, so that's going to be proccing this. Next, we have the Arcane Focus node. That's going to give us extra intellect and then ward gained on direct spellcast. This is one of the nodes that got slightly nerfed going into 1.0. It wasn't a substantial amount though, so it should be totally fine. Next, I put the 5 points into the Rune Word Cataclysm. They'll give us extra crit strike chance, as well as when we do crit, it's going to give us increased damage versus low health enemies. Then I would go ahead and put the 6 points into the Mental Catalysis node here for the extra intellect, as well as finishing out the reduced bonus damage we take from critical strikes. That should give you access to the Frost Wall at that point. I would then go ahead and swap over to the Sorcerer tree and start filling out these nodes. I'd start with getting the 5 points into Calculated Destruction. That way you get the increased spell critical strike chance per intellect. That will help get the our charges there to be able to cap on crit. Then you can put the 5 points into Arcane Momentum. Every time we cast a spell, it's going to give us a stack of Arcane Momentum, which is going to give us 5% increased cast speed. We can get up to 5 stacks, and it refreshes its stacks every time we cast. With how fast we're casting, we can stack that really quickly. Then we'll put the 6 points over here. This is going to add extra effects to our Arcane Momentum. So it's also going to give us increased spell damage per stack, as well as movement speed when we're at maximum stacks. Next, we're going to put 1 point over here, just so we hit the prerequisite for the Rift Bolt. And then 1 point over to Whirling Snow. That's going to give us an additional 7% chill chance, but that's going to apply to our Lightning Bolt, where other chill chance does not. That's going to help proc a negative ailment on the enemies. And then we'll put the 4 points into Rift Bolt for the Lightning Penetration, and then the Lightning Damage Leech. That's just, again, to help counteract the effects of the Twisting Heart that's going to be draining our health pool. After we finish speccing out Sorcerer, we can go back to Runemaster, and we can grab the rest of the points. We don't really need the damage reduction early on in the game. This is a very, very tanky build. You are going to be immortal for most of the leveling process, so I would hold off on grabbing the Sphere of Protection until the very end. It's going to give you less damage taken from enemies that are ignited, shocked, or chilled, so I would just grab that as your very last nodes. So next we put the 1 travel point to Never Late, and then we're going to get access to Rune of Dilation. Basically, every time we cast a movement skill, we're going to get 10% increased cast speed for 5 seconds. After that, we're going to go ahead and grab the 6 points over here into Inscribed Instruments. That's going to give us critical strike multiplier while we're wielding a wand, so it's an extra 72%. Then we'll grab the 5 points into Decree of Burning Wind. That's going to give us more damage to bosses and rare enemies, and then that effect gets doubled if you've walked through a frost wall recently, which we should be doing all the time. Next, we're going to put the 8 points into Ancient Inscriptions. That's going to give us some extra intellect, but the really big thing here is we're going to get cooldown recovery speed per 4 intelligence. So that's going to have us have a much higher uptime on all of our defenses. After that, we're going to put 1 point into Runeward Hurricane. It gives us a 20% chance to proc the Runeward Hurricane, which is going to be plenty with how fast we're casting. That's going to give us an extra plus 10 flat spell lightning damage. After that, we're going to get 4 points into Jagged Veil. It's going to give us ward every time we crit. This is another node that was nerfed. I think it was like 6 ward on crit before, so it's really not that much of an impact. The big part of this node is with 4 points in there, we get more crit multi per 100 ward versus bosses to a max of 20% crit multi. That's going to be maxed out all the time. And then lastly, we're going to get the 7 points of Celestial Doom. It's going to give us some flat spell damage. as well as it's going to give us more spell damage against branded bosses and ward gained against branded bosses. So we're all the bosses are going to be branded as long as they are sitting inside of your frost wall, as it's going to apply the node right here, the brand of the invaders. So that's going to put that brand on there that's necessary to go ahead and proc that passive ability. And then, like I said, once you finish filling all of that, you can go ahead and dump the rest of your points over to Sphere of Protection for the rest of the skill points. All right, so it's going to go ahead and wrap up the rest of the character. The other things I did want to point out is I did intentionally try to avoid using any of the bugged abilities from the previous patch, or any of the abilities I felt like were going to end up getting nerfed. So that is why I am not running the node that gives you the flame ward every time you walk through your frost wall. They did drastically nerf this, so now it shares the cooldown with your flame ward and has a 12-second cooldown on it. So I decided to take that out from the beginning, as well as any build that was using this node there is kind of a bait. So elemental lore used to give you, so it says it gives you elemental penetration per 3 intellect. It was actually reversed, where it was giving you 3 pen per 1 intellect, making any of the builds that mainly used Runic Invocation abilities to do insane amounts of damage. So all of those builds have been drastically nerfed with that bug being fixed, which is why I decided to end up using Lightning Blast to apply all my damage. So I hope this helps out. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll try to give you as many tools as I can in the video description, with the loot filter, the leveling guide by Dread, and then yeah, I'm here for a resource. You can also hit me up in the Discord there. You can send me a message if you have any questions, or if there's something you think might make the build better. I'm all ears. I put this together here in the last week while I was really sick, so I tried to rush everything through as fast as I can and try as many things as I could, but I'm definitely not perfect. So if you guys find anything that helps boost this build anymore, feel free to let me know, and we'll get it updated for you. While you guys are here, if you did enjoy the video and enjoyed the build guide, feel free to go ahead and hit a sub button there on the YouTube channel. You guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitch if you want to watch me making these builds live, or watch me playing the characters. I would greatly appreciate it. Alrighty guys, I appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one.